You've probably seen the headlines, right? The bees are disappearing. Colony collapse. It's something we're all worried about. But what's actually going on? Is there one single bad guy in this story? Or is it, well, a lot more complicated? Let's get into it and unpack the real, scientifically backed threats that honeybee colonies are facing. The best way to think about this is like we're detectives at a crime scene. A honeybee colony is this incredibly delicate, balanced system. And when things go wrong, the cause isn't always staring you right in the face. There are a whole bunch of clues to consider. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When a beekeeper opens a hive and finds it struggling or completely empty, what's the culprit? Is it some kind of disease? Is it something in the environment? Or is it a perfect storm of different stresses just pushing them over the edge? Okay, so before we jump to the things we hear about most often in the news, like pesticides, we have to look at this constant grinding pressure that bees are always under. There's a primary suspect that's weakening colonies all year round, and it makes them vulnerable to pretty much everything else. And here's the key thing to get. Bee colonies aren't starting out at 100% health. Not even close. They are in a constant, never-ending fight against a bunch of different pathogens. You can almost think of it like a chronic illness for the whole hive that just won't go away, which makes every other challenge that much harder to survive. And public enemy number one is this nasty little parasite, the varroa destructor mite. I mean, its name, destructor, pretty much says it all. This mite is a nightmare. It latches onto bees, it feeds on their fatty tissues, and maybe worst of all, it acts like a tiny, dirty needle, injecting a whole cocktail of deadly viruses right into the bee's system. And listen, this isn't just a hunch. Study after study points the finger at the varroa mite as the #1 killer of honeybee colonies, especially when they're trying to survive the winter. A really important study back in 2010 flat out called it the main culprit. Honestly, managing these mites is probably the most critical job a beekeeper has. But a chronic illness from within, that's not the whole story. While a colony is being worn down from the inside by these mites, it's also facing these sudden, devastating hits from the outside. And that, of course, is where pesticides come into play. And this is a really crucial distinction. Mites are like a slow burn. They're this constant drain on the colony. Pesticides, on the other hand, they can be like a lightning strike. We're talking about an acute poisoning event that can knock out a massive number of bees fast. So you can see two totally different timelines of destruction here. On one side, you've got the mites, this chronic, long-term siege that just grinds the colony down, making it hard to survive the winter. And on the other side, you've got pesticides, a sudden frontal assault that usually hits right in the middle of the summer when the bees are at their busiest. So how does this exposure even happen? Well, the paths are pretty direct. Bees can pick up pesticides when they're gathering nectar and pollen from crops that have been sprayed, or they can get it from nearby weeds that caught some of the spray drift. And sometimes they just get unlucky and fly right through the spray itself. Now, unlike that slow decline you see with mites, a big pesticide event leaves behind some very clear and frankly very grim evidence. For a beekeeper, the signs are just dramatic and totally unmistakable. The scene is just catastrophic. You'll see huge piles of dead and dying bees right at the hive entrance. You'll see bees that are paralyzed or shaking or just crawling on the ground, unable to fly. It's so bad that even the baby bees, the larvae, will crawl out of their cells to die. It's a sudden, violent disruption of the entire colony. All right, so knowing the threats is one thing, but what can we actually do about it? Well, the good news is there are some really clear, practical strategies that farmers and anyone spraying pesticides can use to help protect these amazing pollinators. It really boils down to 5 common-sense steps. First, just follow the label instructions. They're on there for a reason. Second, and this is a huge one, try not to spray plants that are flowering, because that's where the bees are. Third, timing is everything. Spray late in the evening, after 8 p.m., or super early in the morning when the bees are home. Fourth, if you have a choice, pick a pesticide that's less toxic to bees. And finally, just use pesticides when you absolutely have to, as part of a smart pest management plan.
Now, just when you think you've got a handle on the problem of pesticide sprays, the story takes another turn. A newer, much more subtle risk has been identified, and here's the twist. It doesn't come from a sprayer at all.
That's right. The danger isn't just in what's being sprayed on the plants. It's in what's coated onto the seeds before they even go in the ground. And this has become a major area of concern. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, seed treatments are insecticides that are coated directly onto seeds, like corn kernels, creating this protective shell. The idea is to shield the plant from pests right from the get-go. It's a super efficient way to use insecticide, but it's had a pretty serious unintended consequence.
Here's the chain of events. So those coated seeds get loaded into these big air pressure planters. As they tumble around inside, that insecticide coating gets scraped and worn off, creating the superfine toxic dust. That dust then gets blown out of the planter's exhaust vents and into the air. From there, it can settle all over nearby wildflowers or land in puddles where bees drink, creating a whole new way for them to be poisoned.
So you see, it's an ongoing challenge. The varroa mite is still that primary chronic enemy number one. But as our farming practices change and evolve, new risks pop up. The whole story of honeybee health is this powerful reminder that we always have to be asking ourselves, as we innovate to grow our food, how can we also innovate to protect the tiny, essential partners that make so much of that food possible in the first place?